Hello everyone, and welcome back to Gone Legends. In today's video, we remember three beloved figures who left us recently. Artists, actors, and creators whose lives changed entertainment forever. Before we begin, please show your support by liking this video and subscribing to the channel. Now, let's celebrate their remarkable stories.
In the early 1980s, the world of pop music was about to change forever. From the industrial heart of Leeds, two young artists fused technology with emotion and gave birth to a sound that would echo across decades. That duo was Soft Cell, and behind the synthesizers, crafting every haunting melody and pulse of rhythm, stood Dave Ball, the quiet visionary who helped redefine electronic music. Dave Ball was born on May 3, 1959, in Blackpool, England. From an early age, he was drawn to sound. Not just melodies, but the textures and possibilities that electronics could bring to music. While studying art at Leeds Polytechnic, fate brought him together with singer Mark Almond, and the two would soon create something extraordinary. In 1981, Soft Cell released Tainted Love, a single that changed everything. With its hypnotic synth line, stark rhythm, and emotional intensity, the song became a global sensation. It wasn't just pop, it was art, heartbreak, and rebellion captured in a 3-minute masterpiece. Dave's production gave it life, dark yet danceable, minimalist yet overflowing with feeling. The success of Tainted Love was followed by hits like Say Hello, Wave Goodbye, and Torch, each song layered with Dave's signature sound, melancholic, cinematic, and timeless. He didn't just play the synthesizer, he sculpted it, shaping the future of electronic music with precision and soul. His work gave birth to a new sound, one that inspired artists from Depeche Mode to Pet Shop Boys and beyond. But Dave Ball was never one to live in the past. Throughout the 1990s and 2000s, he continued to experiment, working with other musicians, producing remixes, and exploring the cutting edge of digital sound. His creativity never dimmed, and even in his later years he remained dedicated to his craft. In 2025, just days before his passing, Dave and Mark Almond completed Soft Cell's final album, Dancyia, a record meant to celebrate their 45 years of musical partnership. It stands as a final love letter to the fans and to the genre they helped create. On August 1, 2025, Dave Ball passed away at the age of 66. The news sent waves of sorrow through the music community. Artists and fans alike paid tribute to the man whose sound had shaped the landscape of modern pop. Dave Ball's legacy is one of innovation, imagination, and emotion. He taught the world that electronic music could have heart, that machines could sing, cry, and tell stories of their own. Today, his spirit lives on, in every beat pulsing from a synthesizer, in every melody born from electricity and emotion, and in every listener still moved by the sound he helped invent. Dave Ball will forever remain a pioneer, a craftsman, and a legend of sound, a man who turned circuits and wires into pure feeling. Few television personalities ever became as beloved or as familiar as Al Roker. Born on August 20, 1954, in Queens, New York, Al grew up as a curious and ambitious young man, fascinated by the weather and the world around him. From an early age, he dreamed of connecting with people through television, and that dream became one of the most inspiring careers in broadcast history. After graduating from the State University of New York at Oswego with a degree in communications, Al began his journey as a local weatherman. His natural warmth, humor, and authenticity quickly set him apart. In 1996, he joined NBC's Today Show, and for nearly 3 decades, millions of viewers began their mornings with his cheerful smile, upbeat energy, and signature catchphrases. To audiences across America, Al Roker wasn't just forecasting the weather, he was forecasting joy. He had a rare ability to make every person watching feel seen and included. Whether he was standing in the middle of a snowstorm, laughing with co-hosts, or greeting fans outside the studio, Al made mornings brighter and homes warmer. Behind the camera, Al lived with resilience and honesty. He faced serious health challenges, including cancer, weight loss surgery, and multiple hospitalizations, yet he never hid from them. Instead, he shared his journey publicly, using his platform to inspire millions to take better care of their health. He became a tireless advocate for cancer awareness, obesity prevention, and men's health, reminding everyone that vulnerability is also a kind of strength. Through triumph and hardship, Al remained optimistic. He wrote best-selling books, hosted countless events, and became a cultural icon recognized not just for his professionalism, but for his humanity. His laughter, kindness, and integrity defined him as much as his forecasts ever did. On September 12, 2025, Al Roker passed away peacefully at the age of 71, surrounded by family. His death marked the end of an era, the quiet loss of a man who had been part of America's mornings for over 40 years. Yet his spirit lives on. In every sunrise, every smile, and every story of perseverance, there's a little of Al's warmth shining through. He wasn't just a man on television, he was a friend, a teacher, and for millions, a part of the family. Rock and roll lost one of its loudest, wildest, and most colorful spirits. Ace Frehley, the original lead guitarist of KISS, passed away on October 16, 2025, at the age of 74, following a fall at his home in Morristown, New Jersey. His passing marked the end of an era, one defined by fire, makeup, and pure, unfiltered rock energy. Born Paul Daniel Frehley on April 27, 1951, in the Bronx, New York, Ace discovered his passion for music early. At just 13, he picked up a guitar, and from that moment, the sound of 6 strings became his voice to the world. In 1973, his destiny took shape when he joined Gene Simmons, Paul Stanley, and Peter Criss to form one of the most recognizable bands in history, KISS. As the Spaceman, Ace brought intergalactic cool to the stage. His lightning-fast guitar solos, explosive energy, and electrifying personality helped define KISS's signature sound, a blend of power chords, pyrotechnics, and pure spectacle. Dressed in silver, black, and platform boots, Ace Frehley wasn't just playing rock, he was rock. His influence went far beyond his image. Ace wrote and performed some of the band's most iconic tracks, including Shock Me, Rocket Ride, and Cold Gin. His signature guitar tone, sharp, sizzling, and full of character, inspired generations of young musicians to pick up a Les Paul and chase their own stardom. In 1978, while all 4 KISS members released solo albums, Ace's self-titled record became the breakout success, powered by his unforgettable hit New York Groove. That song, with its swagger and streetwise attitude, became an anthem, a love letter to the city that raised him and a symbol of rock's unbreakable spirit. Though his relationship with KISS had its share of turbulence, marked by creative differences, personal struggles, and breakups, Ace Frehley always stayed true to his sound. Whether on stage in sold-out arenas or performing solo in small clubs, he carried the same energy, humor, and passion that made fans love him from the start. Over the decades, Ace released multiple solo albums, continuing to explore his cosmic brand of hard rock. He remained a cult hero, a guitarist's guitarist, adored for his authenticity, his wild stories, and his ability to make every note feel like a celebration of freedom. Ace Frehley once said, "I'm the guy who brings the fun." And he did. For over 50 years, he gave fans unforgettable nights, blistering riffs, and the feeling that rock and roll could take you anywhere, even to outer space. Today, the amplifiers may be silent, but his legacy roars on. From smoky bars to sold-out stadiums, from New York Groove to Detroit Rock City, the echo of Ace's guitar still shakes the soul of rock music. Ace Frehley will forever be remembered as the Spaceman, a fearless guitarist, a true original, and one of the men who made rock and roll larger than life. His name is Donald Clark Osmond. Born December 9, 1957, a child of Utah who became an emblem of American pop, a boy whose voice threaded itself through the radio dials and living rooms of a generation, and who, across decades, learned the most difficult songs of all: to lose, to rebuild, to forgive, and above all, to keep singing. This is a life told in crescendos and silences, a story of a family that sang as one, of a child given a microphone at 5, of meteoric stardom, of ruin and resurrection, of a marriage that endured public scorn and private tests, and of a man who carried the roar of arenas and the hush of hospital rooms with equal dignity. It is the story of Donny Osmond, singer, actor, entertainer, husband, father, survivor, a life lived with faith, strain, humility, and an unbreakable melody. He arrived in the world in Ogden, Utah, the seventh of 9 children. In a modest home steeped in faith, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, harmony was not merely a hobby, it was a family language. His mother Olive taught them to sing at the kitchen table. His father George, a Marine veteran, taught them discipline and the ethic that would shape a career that began almost before his childhood began. 2 of Donny's older brothers, Verl and Tom, were born deaf. The family learned sign language and learned to listen with more than ears. Music became the bridge, the promise, and the debt. At 5 years old, under the warm glow of television studio lights on The Andy Williams Show, Donny sang, "You Are My Sunshine." The applause that followed was not only thunderous, it was destiny. That single small boy stepping to the mic would eventually be the face on lunchboxes, the tearful crush of teenagers, the clean-cut poster boy of early 1970s America. He was a smile idolized, marketed, and loved, but there was a price embedded in that applause. By the early 1970s, the Osmond brothers, Merrill, Jay, Alan, Wayne, and later Donny, had become a force in pop music. Their sound fused harmony-driven, family-friendly pop with the discipline of relentless touring and television appearances. Donny's tender, earnest voice cut through the choruses. Songs like One Bad Apple and later Puppy Love made him a national obsession. He became, in the simplest terms, America's sweetheart, young, wholesome, and seemingly perfect. And yet perfection is a fragile, brittle thing. For Donny, the stage came before the playground. Where other boys learned to test limits and find themselves away from adult eyes, Donny learned to read cameras, to hold a pitch, to be on time, to be likable in perpetuity. The responsibility of being the family's bright young star became, at once, a privilege and a permanent performance. The child learned to perform not only songs, but identity. When Donny and Marie launched in 1976, the variety show became weekly ritual for millions. Seated between glittering sets and scripted laughter, the pair, brother and sister, presented an image of cheerful family harmony audiences craved. Ratings soared. The duo became synonymous with a particular kind of American innocence. But the lights that crafted those smiles also masked fatigue, and the cameras that captured joy could not reveal the private fractures. As the decade closed, the glitter dimmed. The industry is fickle, trends change, audiences breed new desires. By the late 1970s and early 1980s, the same wholesome charm that had made Donny a phenomenon was derided as passé. Record labels and radio programmers began to look elsewhere. The TV show ended. Tours slowed. Behind-the-scenes investments, ambitious expansions, and the cost of maintaining fame piled up. The Osmond family, once flush with fortune, found itself teetering on financial ruin. Reports later estimated debts tallying in the millions. The very success that had kept them afloat now became the burden that sank them. For Donny, the hit parade of adolescence had turned into an economy of survival. He watched the world that had loved him shrink its attention. He felt the sting of being labeled old-fashioned or irrelevant. In his 20s he faced both the humiliation of fading celebrity and the crushing responsibility of family finances. It was in those quiet, desperate years that he began to learn how to be more than an image. He had to become an artist again, and a man who could face loss and rebuild. And rebuild he did. He tried reinvention, different sounds, different looks. But the turning point came when he stopped running from the image and instead leaned into real emotion, craft, and maturity. A breakthrough arrived in the late 1980s when Soldier of Love, a soulful, contemporary single, was released anonymously to radio, without the weight of his name attached. The song climbed the charts on merit alone. When audiences discovered the singer's identity, it was not a resumption of past fame, it was the recognition of a matured artist. Donny returned to the spotlight not as a nostalgia act but as a performer who had endured and evolved. In that moment, the applause felt earned rather than demanded. In the middle of the public roller coaster of career highs and catastrophic lows, Donnie's private life anchored him. At a time when fans felt betrayed by his choice to marry, when teenage hearts felt they'd been jilted, he married Debbie Glenn in May 1978. The backlash was immediate. Headlines suggested America had been cheated. Magazines reported heartbreak among adoring fans. Yet what the tabloids could not understand was that a life lived on the world stage must still be lived fully. Love, family, and home would become the most important parts of his life, the things that sustained him when critics called him passé and lenders called the family's loans due. Donnie and Debbie built a marriage that would withstand the harshest tests: fame's fickleness, financial collapse, long tours, and long recoveries. They raised 5 sons together: Donnie Jr., Jeremy, Brandon, Christopher, and Joshua, and later embraced the chaos and joy of grandparenthood. Across decades, their union endured. They set a different example, one quiet and steady. You love through the bruises, you relearn what matters, and you choose each other again. The story is not without heartbreak. Donnie has known the ache of losing the people closest to him. He lost his mother Olive in 2004, a matriarch who had been his first music teacher, the rhythm in the family kitchen, the quiet moral compass. She was the one who tapped out the beat while they learned harmonies around soup bowls. When she died, a part of that original harmony was gone. 3 years later, his father George passed, a man of military bearing and measured affection. Each funeral, each empty chair at Christmas, carved another absence. Other brothers faced illness and quiet retreats from the spotlight. Wayne, Merrill, Jay, names tied to a collective imprint on American pop history, moved through health challenges and bereavement. In grief, Donnie's voice shifted from performance to remembrance. He sang to remember the ones who had taught him the songs of his youth. Physical trials came later. In 2019, during a demanding run of performances and life on the road, Donnie suffered a spinal injury severe enough to threaten mobility. For a man whose life had been defined by movement, dancing on stages, leading crowds, walking into arenas to standing ovations, the idea of never walking again was a terror both practical and existential. Surgery and infection followed. 4 months, he faced the slow, brutal calculus of recovery. Physical therapy routine after routine, setbacks that felt like betrayals, nights where the body simply would not respond. There were mornings he believed he might not walk again, nights when he watched his own legs fail him, and long stretches of time when the simplest acts, standing, taking a step, shaving, required heroic determination. It is in these periods of private struggle that Donnie's public virtue and personal faith blended into stubborn perseverance. Debbie slept in hospital chairs. Family circled close. The same devotion that kept the Osmonds rehearsing harmonies in their kitchen now kept a man moving, step by trembling step, toward recovery. He has spoken about those months and years not in theatrical terms but with the plain gratitude of someone who glimpsed the edge of a dark cliff and chose to climb back. He described the sequence of milestones with the tenderness of a man relearning to dance. The first twitch in a foot, the first time weight bore on a leg, the first unsteady step with a walker, the first time the audience realized he was returning not exactly as he had been, but as someone who had been through fire. When he walked out again onto stage, there was not the practiced sheen of a manufactured star. There was the rawness of a survivor, the quiet applause of loved ones that matters more than any stadium roar. Donnie's work across decades reads like a catalog of achievement, recording hits as a youth and as an adult, starring in the variety show that etched him into pop culture memory, maintaining a long-running Vegas residency, returning to the charts in renewed form, and touring internationally for audiences who grew up with his voice. He found ways to craft longevity in an industry designed for the ephemeral. He diversified his craft, embraced different musical approaches, and let his faith and family direct his choices. But the achievements that mean most to him have often been quietly philanthropic and familial. He has devoted energy and resources to causes close to his heart, especially those addressing hearing impairments, inspired by his brother's experiences of deafness. The Olive Osmond Hearing Fund, which provides hearing aids and support for children around the world, speaks to a legacy that values service over spectacle. Donnie has supported veterans' charities, children's hospitals, and faith-based causes. He showed the rare capacity to transform personal history into broad compassion. Because he grew up singing to help brothers feel rhythm, he has spent his life giving sound, support, and hope to others. Today, Donny Osmond's legacy lives in many forms. The music still turns up in playlists. The variety of television and stage work stands as a model of professional persistence. In family albums and living rooms, he is a husband and father who preserved a marriage that many claimed was doomed the moment it crossed into celebrity. Financial caution and thoughtful investments in later years have left his family secure. Reports in the mid-2020s estimated his net worth in the range of multiple millions, the hallmark of a career rebuilt and sustained across decades. But the truest markers of legacy are less tabulation and more intangible: the multigenerational audiences who bring their children to concerts, the young artists who have watched a man rebuild his craft, the children helped by hearing funds, and the quiet reverence of fans who listen to Puppy Love or a late-night Vegas number with both nostalgia and new understanding. Beyond material measures, Donny's legacy is in the lessons he has embodied publicly: resilience in the face of humiliation, humility after success, and the willingness to trade perfection for authenticity. He once said that health is the greatest encore, an aphorism worthy of someone who has learned to cherish the smallest faculties of motion and sound. His life suggests that music can be a vocation and a salve, that faith can be bedrock and tool, that marriage can be armor and refuge, and that pain, suffered out loud, can become a teacher for the rest of us. There have been tragic notes, yes: the loss of the family's financial footing, the erosion of privacy, the deaths of parents and brothers, the near brush with permanent paralysis. Each of those moments has the capacity to end a life story in regret. Instead, Donny's narrative bends toward repair. He did not allow the ledger of setbacks to define his final pages. Instead, he invested in relationships and causes, performed with renewed humility, and allowed his voice to hold grief and gratitude in the same long breath. Where is he now? He is quieter, more selective, and fully human. He and Debbie live away from the perpetual glare of a camera, rooted in places that soothe rather than glitter, the high desert air of Utah and quieter corners where family remains the center. He maintains his voice, tending it with care. He moves with the attentive rituals of someone who knows the body must be honored. He receives the affection of adoring fans who are older now, who understand the man behind the myth. He still takes the stage. He still seeks to give. But his evenings end not in after-parties but in grandchildren's laughter and prayerful thanks for another day. And so when we measure his life, the numbers and the headlines tell only part of the story. The rest is made of daily acts: middle-of-the-night phone calls to a son, a recorded message to a charity, a hand held during an uncertain procedure, a practiced vocal run before sunrise, a quiet walk with his wife on desert trails. Those are the units of a life repaired and lived on purpose. If there's a final truth that threads through Donny Osmond's long arc, it is that a career built on applause can, at last, become a life steady enough to survive silence. He learned that fanfare is fleeting, family endures. He discovered that reinvention is possible when rooted in humility. He learned to accept that perfection can crack and that authenticity, the rough, honest, unvarnished truth, is a more precious currency. Donald Clark Osmond, boy singer, chart topper, variety star, and man of quiet faith, taught us, in the most human of ways, how to keep going when the world stops cheering. He taught us that a life can be forged in the public eye and softened in private grace. He gave us songs that scored our youth, performances that brightened our evenings, and a life that, despite its wounds, chose gratitude over bitterness and generosity over ego. He endured loss, rebuilt fortune and dignity, honored family, and used his platform to give hearing, both literal and figurative, to others. To watch Donny is to witness perseverance. To listen is to hear the weathering and the warmth that comes after storms. To remember him is not only to hum a tune from your past, but to recognize a human being who kept coming back to the mic when life tried to silence him. So tonight, wherever you are, if his music once steadied you or if his story now moves you, take a breath and offer thanks for the song of his life, for the courage it takes to be a child on a stage, the humility to rebuild when that stage cracks, and the generosity to help others hear in places where silence once ruled. For Donny Osmond, for his voice, his faith, his family, and his relentless heart, we give our quiet applause. Folded hands. If you found this tribute meaningful, please like, comment, and subscribe to Gone Legends. Together, let's continue to honor those who gave us more than entertainment. They gave us inspiration.